It's the seizures, Tamsin, you're quite right.
Olga, you're being so funny right now.
Because I'm talking to you.
Epilepsy is a disorder of the brain in which there is a tendency to have recurring seizures. For every seizure you have, you cause brain damage, and there is no known cure. My sister Tamsin suffers from a severe form of epilepsy and autism.
Tamsin had 70 seizures one night.
I would start to get these small jerks in my hands. He sent me to a specialist, and then he just said to me, "You've got epilepsy."
Having tried to take care of her sister and then to be struck down yourself must have been devastating.
There was always this feeling of, I will not let my condition define me. I moved to New York when I was 19.
My sister lives in the UK in full-time care.
We've tried many different medications for Tamsin. Every medication that you take, you pay a price.
I like the colour of my tablets. I don't like the way they make me dizzy in the daytime and at night time.
It's really hard for me to describe how horrific it was to take epilepsy medication.
I felt suicidal.
I was introduced to medical cannabis. I then started to use medical cannabis, and I haven't had one seizure since. Could this be the thing that would finally help Tam?
It should be available in the NHS, but the NHS is resisting it. People have been lying about the harms of cannabis and denying the benefits for 50 years. It's quite difficult suddenly to say, oh, sorry, I was wrong.
My sister's neurologist is saying that it would be unethical.
I think it's unethical not to prescribe.
Of course.
My sister doesn't have access due to where things are at in the UK. The situation feels to me very unjust. You know, I have access to this medicine because of my postcode.
Don't stop, keep going, don't lose heart. Thanks for picking up that torch and carrying it, you know?
Because it's just me.
You feel guilty that someone else suffers a lot more than you do. Because if you could just sort of like take some of that pain away from the person you love, but you can't.
It's an electrical interruption. It's 50 million people worldwide and no cure. It's my sister's life.
Hi and welcome to the Soho London Independent Film Festival. I'm Liz Farah-Hardy and I am very, very honoured to be joined today by Sophie Daniel, who is the producer of a really, really incredible film called Sisters Interrupted. So, Sophie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It really is. Could you tell us, for our audience, without giving anything away, could you just tell us what the film is about?
Yes, of course. So the film is about two sisters, two British sisters who both have epilepsy, and one lives in the US and one lives in the UK. And the sister who lives in the US has been treating her seizures for 7 years with medical cannabis. And the sister who lives in the UK lives under the NHS and does not have access to the medicine. And our film is about showing a medical injustice.
So beautifully put. Honestly, that film, I watched it and it was just, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and the injustice of it, it's insane. I mean, how did you find this story and how did you get involved with Chelsea and Tamsin?
Yeah, so I was brought onto the project by the director, Caroline Sharp, who is a good friend of mine. And she was friends with Chelsea, and they decided to make a film because Chelsea had this audience that she had through her social media, and she wanted to be able to tell the world about epilepsy and thought that making a documentary would be the best way to do that.
Film is always the best way, of course. And is it the doc you set out to make, or did the journey evolve as you went along?
We set out to make a film that was more about medical cannabis and was more of an activism film. And then as we became closer and closer to the family, we kind of, this story was so beautiful about these sisters, and that is ultimately the most relatable thing for any audience, is family and the love of a family. And to be able to tell the story of a condition that 50 million people in the world suffer from, and people don't really talk about, through that relationship, that was, you know, by far and away the best film to make.
Absolutely.
So it was a very organic transition, but one that I'm so glad happened in the end.
Oh, I mean, the way that the story evolves, I mean, it's from the soul. It's just complete, and they're so open. I mean, how was that, building the relationship with them? Because it's such a thing of trust.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like I know them. I feel like, I mean, to walk away from something feeling like that is an incredible feat.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because when you're inside it, it's not always clear that that's what the audience take from it. So thank you for saying that, because that's obviously, you know, very reassuring to hear. I think it happened very naturally because Chelsea and I became friends very quickly, and the relationship between us as filmmakers, we were all friends, and so the trust with her and her family was very natural. And I got on really well with Tamsin, and we spent a lot of time with her. And so the family trusted us, Chelsea trusted us, which was probably the hardest part of making the film for Chelsea, was trusting that an audience would care about her story. That was always a battle for us, was to tell her, of course people care. This is heartbreaking stuff, but also really inspiring material for people who have epilepsy. And yeah, I think actually getting Tamsin's trust was probably easier than Chelsea's, because she had so much kind of an understandable insecurity around it all, which eventually she has conquered, which is like a really cathartic thing for her. So that's been great.
Yeah, I mean, God, it is a big thing to invite people into your life to do that and put it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put it out there. Caroline, who directed this, she's got a master's in neuroscience, hasn't she?
Yeah.
So she's not very clever then.
No, she's one of those people, like anything she does, she will take to that level.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was that an influence on this story, on finding it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So actually there's like twofold for that question. Caroline and Chelsea they were friends, but how they originally decided to make the film was that Chelsea had been at a music festival. I think Kaz was there as well. Caroline. And she had bumped into some of Chelsea's friends, and they said, oh, Chelsea just had a seizure. And Caroline said, well, where is she? Said, oh, she's on her own now. She's like, you should never leave someone on their own after they have a seizure. So she went to see her straight away. And then they had a really great conversation about her seizures, and Chelsea was telling her what it felt like, and Caroline was telling Chelsea what was happening in her brain from literally a neuroscience perspective. And I don't think Chelsea had had a conversation like that even with her neurologists before. So I think that was kind of the first step to Chelsea realising that she could possibly trust Kaz to tell her story.
Right.
And the second great thing about Kaz being a neuroscientist was that she understood this material like so naturally, all the science. She could digest it in a way that, you know, either of us couldn't, and then put it into layman's terms and realise what an audience needed, what they didn't. And she was also able to interview some of the people who didn't make it into the final cut, who were scientists, neuroscientists, and she was able to interview them and be completely on a par and have these real medical scientific conversations, which was pretty cool.
And do you know what, it's interesting you saying it now. I'm only thinking it now, because watching it felt very easy to understand.
Yeah, that's great.
Even though it's quite complicated, isn't it? And it's so it's massive fair play. I mean, this journey that you've been on doing this, do you think this has changed you?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think because when we set out to make the film, we were all we were quite green in a way, and we kind of just thought, let's make a documentary. It was so ambitious and, in a way quite naive, which I think is actually useful when you're taking on such a big project, because you don't overcomplicate it in your head, you just kind of crack on. But it's taught me how to have patience, how to understand maybe some boundaries, how to, understand that it's someone's story, and just have a lot of empathy around that. And another thing it taught me was to keep going when you make mistakes, and actually the mistakes are often a point that you can pivot and turn into something positive, because we made all the mistakes you can make and hit all the lows and all the highs, but we probably wouldn't be where we are if we hadn't had that journey. So
that's how you grow, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, what were some of the challenges that you came across?
Money was the biggest challenge.
Always the one.
Yeah, and just finding support, and where are we going to put this film once we finally made it. The biggest challenge I would say was Chelsea, and getting her to trust that people would identify with her story and that we were making the right film. She wanted to make the activist film because it was less personal for her, and that is completely understandable. So that was a challenge, and knowing where the line was with the family, and knowing when to say, actually, we need to get out of here, take the cameras away, this is your life. Knowing where that line is, I think that was a challenge, but I think, and I hope that we managed to get it right.
That must be really difficult, because you do show some deeply personal moments, and things like with fitting and stuff like that. I mean, how do you gauge that? Because you've got to show it for the audience to understand. But I think that a lot of that came down to Caroline, because she was behind the camera a lot, and I think it was so much easier for us to gauge because we were friends, and it wasn't like this kind of foreign film crew who there's like a level of politeness. It was like, we're just friends and we're together, and if something feels uncomfortable, everyone can feel like they can say, or Rex, Chelsea's dad, will just say, get out, and it's like we don't mind. Yeah, so once again, it's
I don't think he ever did actually say that, but theoretically it would have been okay. Yeah.
And for people watching this, what do you want them to take away?
For people watching, I'd like them to understand epilepsy as a condition, and to maybe have more empathy, or be able to not fear someone having a seizure, because the difference between fearing it and not fearing it is that you might save their life if you were to call an ambulance or put a pillow under their head, or not think that something scary is happening, that you can just help. Also to be more open-minded about different medical treatments. And I guess understanding the importance of love in a family, and how much that can get people through these incredibly challenging life situations.
Yeah. And the target audience that you're looking for this to go out to?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
I'm sorry,
no,
it is, isn't it?
I thought about it a lot. Well, there's 50 million people in the world who have epilepsy. So, and all those people have families. So that in itself is a massive audience, quite ambitious. But those, we obviously want those people to watch the film and feel seen, and hopefully be pleased with the way that things have been reported in the film. But also it would be great for people with influence to watch it, and hopefully make some sort of policy change so that people are getting access to this medicine. I mean, even like since 2018, we rescheduled cannabis in the UK, and still only 5 people or less have had a prescription on the NHS.
And doing some research on this, most of it's grown here and shipped out to America.
We are the biggest exporter of medical
I mean,
cannabis.
it's insane.
Yeah.
It's totally insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that's not quite right, but I do think we will eventually catch up, but it's taking time, a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have seen no progress in the whole time that we've made this film, and it's been a 5-year project. So it's, you know, it's very, very slow, but I think it will happen. It has to happen because...
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's the pharmaceutical companies haven't worked out how to make money out of it yet. So
there's a lot of reasons. Yeah,
yeah.
But, well, I have hope. I have high hopes. But, you know, we'll see.
Cool. And did you, when you were making this, or currently, have you worked alongside any organisations that are campaigning for things or supporting people with epilepsy?
Oh, yeah, we have. We did a social media campaign with Young Epilepsy on our Instagram account where we interviewed young people with epilepsy and just asked them really normal questions and made these quite sort of cool, well, Caroline made them, like cool little Instagram clips. It was called Facing Epilepsy, and I think it was quite successful.
Amazing.
And then we also might be doing some stuff with Epilepsy Action, and we support the Epilepsy Society, which is where Tamsin lives. So, yeah.
Amazing.
I'm also open to any epilepsy organisations. Like it'll be like a lifelong thing to be part of supporting, you know, anything epilepsy related.
That's fabulous. And why film festivals? Why are they so important for this film?
I think being a small film feels like a bit of a diamond in the rough, and it's very hard to get noticed. And what I found with the Soho Independent Film Festival is like the level of support from you guys and how, you know, just the interactions. It's really reassuring, and I think you just get to see films that you probably would never have gotten to see, and it's amazing exposure and experience. And yeah, I highly recommend it to anyone who is trying to get their film out there, because it's a great avenue.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, well, look, congratulations, because
Thank
it
you.
is absolutely fantastic film, and it hits everything. You just like, because you can't watch it and not care. And it's such a lovely story. They're so likeable.
They are.
Just, they're beautiful people, and it's like, why the hell can she not get access to this? You can have heroin and cocaine given to people at the doctors, but not cannabis. What is that all about?
Yeah.
Well, we know, but... So listen, you've got to watch this film and get involved with what's trying to be changed here, because film is so powerful, and this is something that is really creating a platform that needs to be supported. So please watch this. The festival is from the 25th of January until the 28th of January, and it is a wonderful, wonderful film. Sisters Interrupted. You have to watch it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.